HOA Karen calls cop on black woman at her own pool, only to find out she's the state senator. A quiet afternoon by the pool turned into a scene straight out of a headline. Imagine this: you're relaxing, enjoying a swim, when someone decides you don't belong, based on nothing but their own assumptions. That's exactly what happened in Oakbridge Estates, and it's a story you won't believe. Stay tuned to Adam Alpha as we dive into this jaw-dropping tale. Nestled in the heart of Raleigh, North Carolina, the Oakbridge Estates community seemed like any other affluent suburb, impeccably lined with magnolia trees. The neighborhood boasted newly constructed brick houses, each with the same style of stoop, the same carefully pruned bushes, and even the same shade of eggshell paint on their shutters. From the outside, you'd think Oakbridge Estates was a tranquil slice of the American dream. But here's the twist: beneath the surface, a quiet tension simmered, and it all centered around one woman, Karen Dawson, the HOA president. Want to know how one person's prejudice sparked a community uproar? Keep listening to Adam Alpha for the full story. This tension found its hub in the Homeowners Association, often shortened to the HOA. Residents frequently grumbled about the mountain of rules, from how high your grass could be cut to what color your front door could be painted. At the top of that HOA sat Karen Dawson. She considered herself the self-appointed guardian of Oakbridge Estates, a middle-aged woman who had seemingly made it her life's mission to police every tiny deviation from the community's rules. No one quite remembered when the shift occurred, when Karen went from an eager volunteer on the HOA board to the micromanaging, boundary-pushing leader who demanded absolute compliance. But they all knew the effect she had. People tiptoed around her, avoided confrontation, and quickly corrected even the smallest of infractions just to keep the peace. It was said in hushed tones around block parties that Karen had once reported a neighbor for having a children's inflatable pool in their backyard, something the HOA guidelines didn't explicitly forbid. But Karen cited a phrase about visual disharmony, and the neighbor was forced to remove the pool, kids' tears and all. Still, for those who'd grown up dealing with HOAs, it was easy enough to stay under the radar if you followed the rules. What truly made Oakbridge Estates unique was its location, just a 20-minute drive from downtown Raleigh. The suburb attracted people who worked in the city but yearned for the quieter charms of suburban living. Its manicured streets were a refuge for doctors, lawyers, engineers, and occasionally, public officials. And that was how Maya Simone Carter, a rising star in North Carolina politics, ended up purchasing a spacious yet modest brick house in Oakbridge Estates. Maya had grown up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and after years of relentless advocacy, she'd taken her seat as one of the youngest state senators ever elected in the state. She championed policies related to education reform, healthcare access, and racial equality. Her widely publicized speeches and strong moral stance resonated with a broad spectrum of voters. Yet, Maya still preferred a measure of privacy when away from the Capitol building. She wanted to be the neighbor you might bump into at a coffee shop or see jogging at the local park. Oakbridge Estates, with its quiet streets and presumed sense of community, seemed ideal, at least, at first glance. Maya moved into her house on a sunny afternoon in early May. The movers had just unloaded the last boxes when a slender, short-haired woman, dressed in a pastel pink blouse and khaki slacks, strolled over. Maya, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, paused from directing a mover to greet the new visitor with a friendly smile. "Hello there, welcome to the neighborhood," the woman chirped, her bright lipstick forming a perfect line of forced politeness. "I'm Karen Dawson, president of our Homeowners Association. I like to introduce myself to all new residents personally." Maya politely extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, I'm Maya Carter." "Thanks for the welcome, I'm excited to be here." Karen's eyes flicked from Maya's hand to her face, and for a moment, Maya felt an uneasy vibe. The handshake was brisk and somewhat limp. Karen scanned Maya's moving boxes as though searching for anything out of place. "Just wanted to make sure you got our welcome packet," Karen said, her tone betraying a veneer of cordiality. "It contains our community guidelines, important contact numbers, and the rules for the pool." Maya nodded, genuinely appreciative. "I've heard a lot about the community pool. I'm an avid swimmer, thank you for letting me know." Karen's smile brightened momentarily. "Yes, it's quite a central gathering spot here. Our guidelines help maintain a certain standard, you understand." Her voice took on a sharper edge. "We do our best to keep Oakbridge Estates looking respectable." Maya's brow furrowed just a bit at Karen's emphasis on respectable. She brushed it aside, attributing it to normal HOA diligence. Still, a sense of caution prickled at her. "I look forward to it," Maya said, "and thanks for stopping by." Karen lingered a second too long before nodding, then extended a glossy pamphlet from her tote bag. "I'll see you at the next HOA meeting, Maya. We expect full participation from all homeowners." With that, Karen walked away, her shoulders stiff, her posture erect, as though she had identified Maya as someone who might require supervision. Maya turned back to her final boxes, unsettled by the encounter but unwilling to let it spoil her fresh start. If there was tension, Maya believed she could handle it. Raleigh summers could get notoriously hot and humid, so when July rolled around, Maya was thrilled to carve out a free Friday afternoon for a much-needed swim. She'd had a grueling legislative session that week, tackling a new public education bill, and she needed to clear her head. The Oakbridge Estates pool was the neighborhood's pride and joy, surrounded by a tall wrought-iron fence. The pool area featured lounge chairs, beige umbrellas, and carefully placed potted plants. A small clubhouse stood at one end, housing restrooms and a vending machine that often swallowed more quarters than it gave out candy. Though Maya had only used the pool a handful of times since moving in, she'd come to love the tranquil environment. Most of the residents were at work that weekday afternoon, leaving the place nearly empty. Maya parked her car in the lot, used her key fob to unlock the gate, and headed in. She wore a simple one-piece swimsuit under a light cover-up and carried a tote bag containing sunscreen, a water bottle, and a novel she was dying to finish. The sun shimmered on the water's surface, the slight breeze ruffling the large umbrellas. Maya chose a lounge chair in the corner near the deep end and placed her tote bag beside it. She toed out of her flip-flops, removed her cover-up, and tested the pool's temperature with a foot. Perfect. In minutes, she was gliding through the water with smooth, practiced strokes that had once earned her a spot on her high school swim team. The water relaxed her, each stroke flushing away the stress of politics and the noise of public scrutiny. Half an hour passed before Maya decided to take a break. She hoisted herself out of the pool and dabbed her face with a small towel. Only then did she notice that she was no longer alone. Standing near the fence, arms crossed and lips pursed, was Karen Dawson. Maya's sense of unease flicked on like a light switch. She offered a polite nod, trying to brush it off as a chance encounter. Karen strode forward, her pastel blouse neatly pressed, her face stern. "Afternoon," she said curtly. Maya grabbed her towel, draped it over her shoulders, and forced a friendly smile. "Hi, enjoying this warm day?" Karen didn't return the smile. Instead, her gaze darted around the pool area. "I didn't realize you had guests," she remarked in a pointed tone. Maya looked around, confused. Apart from herself, the only other presence was an elderly man reading a newspaper at the far end, far from Maya's corner. "I'm here alone," Maya said, puzzlement edging into her voice. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure? I got a report from a neighbor that there were non-residents using the pool earlier. Oakbridge Estates has strict rules against that unless you filed the appropriate guest forms." Maya blinked, the confusion morphing into annoyance. "I just got here, Karen. If anyone else was here, they probably left already." Karen clicked her tongue. "I see. Well, be mindful. We take the integrity of our community spaces very seriously." Maya felt a surge of irritation. She had the right to be there, and she wasn't breaking any rules. Yet, Karen spoke to her as though she were an intruder. Maya swallowed the urge to snap back. "I understand," she said evenly. Karen lingered, her eyes flicking again to Maya's bag and possessions. Finally, she gave a curt nod and walked away, leaving Maya feeling unsettled. She took a few deep breaths, willing the tension to ease out of her shoulders. Let it go, Maya told herself. This was hardly worth escalating. She had bigger responsibilities to worry about. But a voice at the back of her mind whispered that this wouldn't be the last confrontation. As August rolled in, Maya found herself spending less time at the pool, not because she didn't want to swim, but because her schedule with the legislature grew hectic. She was working on a groundbreaking bill aimed at expanding healthcare coverage in underserved areas of North Carolina. Her office in downtown Raleigh buzzed with activity, phone calls, meetings, and press conferences. When Maya finally got home in the evenings, she barely had the energy to shower and sleep. Then came a weekend when she actually had a sliver of free time. Determined to indulge in some self-care, Maya decided on a late afternoon swim. The sun hovered low, casting golden hues across the sky as she parked her car in the small lot near the clubhouse. She noticed a few other cars, some families might be there, maybe a neighbor or two. Maya shrugged, looking forward to a relaxed dip. When she entered the pool area, she saw a handful of children splashing around in the shallow end while two mothers kept a watchful eye from lounge chairs. A retired couple waited calmly near the steps, chatting softly. Maya found a chair near the deep end again, set her things down, and greeted the older couple with a nod. She recognized them from a community barbecue she'd attended weeks ago. They gave her a warm wave, confirming Maya's sense of belonging. No sooner had Maya settled on the lounge chair than she saw Karen Dawson emerge from the clubhouse door. Karen wore a crisp blouse and slacks, looking like she was on official HOA business rather than intending to swim. Maya suppressed an inward groan. Why is she always here when I am? Maya wondered, scanning the pool to see if Karen had some official reason to be present. Karen walked to the edge of the pool, greeting the older couple politely and exchanging quick pleasantries with the two mothers. Then her gaze fell upon Maya. Her lips thinned. Maya stared back, determined not to let Karen intimidate her or ruin her respite. Karen walked over, arms crossed. I see you've decided to make more use of the pool, Karen said. There was an unmistakable note of condescension in her voice. Maya nodded politely. It's nice to have some free time for a change. Karen's eyes flicked to Maya's tote bag, then to Maya's face. Indeed, she replied. Just so you know, we've been having issues with trespassers lately. If you see anything suspicious, be sure to report it. Maya frowned slightly. I will, she said, though the conversation felt loaded. It was as though Karen couldn't simply greet her without implying Maya might be part of the problem. Karen cleared her throat and spoke loud enough for the other poolgoers to overhear. We want to keep this place safe and orderly for all actual residents. Maya inhaled, holding her composure. She got the message. Karen's hostility was veiled but present. Perhaps picking up on the tension, one of the mothers said pointedly, of course, but Maya is one of our own neighbors. No need to worry about her. Karen forced a smile. Of course, just doing my duty, that's all. The mother gave Maya an understanding look, as though to say, ignore her. But Maya couldn't help feeling her blood pressure rise. She wanted to speak up but also wanted to avoid making a scene in front of the kids, so she kept her lips pressed together, giving Karen a tight nod. Karen lingered another moment before strolling away, approaching the families at the shallow end. Maya exhaled a shaky breath. She reminded herself she had navigated far tougher confrontations in the political arena. Still, Maya thought, this is my home, my sanctuary. I shouldn't feel like a stranger here. Despite her frustration, she forced herself to enjoy the cool water, occasionally exchanging nods with the friendly neighbors. Little did she know, this tension was about to reach a boiling point that would thrust both her and Karen into a spotlight no one in Oakbridge Estates could have predicted. Rumors began to swirl in Oakbridge Estates. Some of Maya's neighbors noticed Karen keeping a closer watch on Maya's movements, an extra drive-by of Maya's house, lingering near Maya's mailbox, or showing up at the pool whenever Maya was there. More than once, Maya returned home from an evening function to find Karen's car rolling slowly past her driveway. It was unsettling, yet Maya tried to rationalize it. Perhaps Karen really did just have an inflated sense of duty. Her friends in the neighborhood, including the mother from the pool, named Lucy Harrington, told Maya about Karen's inquisitive questions. She's been asking me about your living situation, like how long you plan to stay, where you work, if you're behind on your HOA fees, Lucy said one afternoon, looking concerned. It's bizarre, Maya. Maya's lips tightened. Thank you for letting me know. I have no intention of giving her any more ammunition if that's what she's after. Lucy frowned. You don't think it's, because you're, Maya shrugged, her voice calm but resolute. I can't read her mind, but her behavior is definitely suspect. I've dealt with all kinds of prejudice, covert and overt, throughout my life. This wouldn't be the first time someone questioned whether I belonged in a certain space. Lucy's eyes flashed with sympathy. I'm so sorry. She's a piece of work, but you definitely shouldn't have to deal with that in your own neighborhood. Maya nodded, grateful to have at least some neighbors she could trust. She'll learn soon enough she's messing with the wrong person, Maya added, half-jokingly. In truth, Maya wanted no drama, but if drama came knocking, she'd be ready. The tension simmered for weeks, small events piling up. Karen emailed Maya about the height of her hedges, then about a garden hose that hadn't been rolled up properly, then about Maya's trash bins being placed an inch too far onto the sidewalk. Maya complied with the rules but saved the emails, building her own quiet record of Karen's harassment. She took mental notes of each time Karen hovered near her property, and Maya considered whether she should file a formal complaint with the HOA board. But Maya's political instincts advised caution. She didn't want a small altercation to overshadow the community work she was doing in the Senate. Then, one September afternoon, everything came to a head. Maya finished up a series of early meetings at the state capitol, concluding her legislative business by mid-morning. The day was unusually warm for September, the temperature reaching the high 80s. Maya decided it was perfect weather for a quick swim before an evening fundraiser. She drove home, changed into a stylish but modest one-piece swimsuit, grabbed her tote bag, and walked to the pool. The pool area was surprisingly empty. School was back in session, and most adults were at work. An ideal scenario for Maya, who wanted to avoid an encounter with Karen. She swiped her key fob to enter, noticing that her fob's battery seemed a bit weak, but it still granted her access. She set her bag on a lounge chair and dove in, letting the water's cool embrace wash away the morning stress. For nearly half an hour, she relished having the entire pool to herself, the only sounds being the distant hum of traffic and the gentle slosh of water. Just as she flipped onto her back to float for a moment, she heard the gate click open. Maya's heart sank. She felt the presence before she saw the face. Sure enough, Karen Dawson's sharp figure stood at the entrance, an unmistakable silhouette of disapproval. Maya, determined not to be intimidated, continued her backstroke until she reached the pool's far edge. She noticed Karen talking on her cell phone, her voice hushed, eyes locked on Maya. Something about the way Karen pointed at Maya sent an electric jolt of warning through Maya's gut. Then Karen ended the call, slipped her phone into her pocket, and marched over to Maya's belongings. "Excuse me," Karen said loudly, gesturing toward Maya's tote bag. "Are you a guest here?" Residents need to display a pool pass or membership card at all times. Maya wiped the droplets of water from her face. "I'm a homeowner," Maya said calmly, and my key fob opened the gate. "My name's Maya Carter, house number 214. Karen pressed her lips together, obviously unsatisfied. "We've had reports of unauthorized individuals using our facilities this week. I'm sure you understand, I need to verify." Maya swam closer to the pool's edge. "I told you, I live here." "You know I do. Is there a real issue, or are you just bored?" Karen bristled. "I beg your pardon? I'm the president of the HOA. My job is to ensure that the rules are followed. Since you don't seem to have your key fob on display, I have every right to verify your status." Maya felt the heat of her anger rising. She had never seen any rule that mandated a display of the key fob once inside. "The key fob is in my bag," Maya said, her voice clipped. "You watched me open the gate with it." Karen exhaled sharply, refusing to back down. "Be that as it may, I'll need to see it." Maya felt a surge of defiance. She hoisted herself out of the pool, her wet hair clinging to her shoulders as she walked over to her tote bag. She rummaged through, retrieving the small black key fob. She held it up for Karen to see. "Satisfied?" Karen squinted at it. "That's a standard fob. Could be borrowed or stolen." Maya laughed in disbelief. "This is absurd. Do you harass every single person who uses the pool like this?" Karen folded her arms. "I enforce the community rules uniformly. If you're truly a resident, you should have your official ID or license with this address." Maya's temper flared. You have gone too far, she snapped. I am a homeowner, and I've had enough of this. Karen blared, unyielding. We'll see about that, she said, a strange satisfaction creeping across her features. With a theatrical flourish, she pulled out her cell phone and dialed 3 digits, 911. Maya's eyes widened in shock. What are you doing? She hissed. You're calling the cops over a pool key fob? Karen placed her hand over the phone's mouthpiece. Suspicious person trespassing, she said matter-of-factly. I asked you to leave if you can't prove you're a resident, and you refused. Maya's jaw dropped. The audacity was staggering, but also terrifying. She knew how quickly situations like these could escalate. She also knew her own identity, a black woman, could turn a mere misunderstanding into a life-threatening event if the responding officers jumped to conclusions. Karen, this is my community. You know this, Maya said, her voice wavering with a mix of fury and fear. Karen turned her back slightly, giving the 911 operator Maya's description and the location. Maya could hardly process the surreal scene. 1,000 thoughts flooded her mind. Should I just leave? No, that looks like guilt. Should I wait for them to arrive? Will they even believe me? And then, a sharper, more significant realization cut through the panic. I'm a state senator. This is my property. I have the right to be here. But Maya also recognized that revealing her official position too early might make matters more explosive. She decided to stand her ground calmly. Go ahead and call them, Maya said, her voice forcibly steady. I have every legal right to be here. Karen ended the call, her expression triumphant. We'll see what the authorities have to say about that. It felt like the longest 15 minutes of Maya's life. She stood there, dripping pool water, arms folded, forcibly reminding herself to remain composed. Karen lingered at a slight distance, her posture rigid, occasionally glancing at her phone. Maya could tell Karen was trying to look nonchalant, as though she'd done nothing wrong, like she was just another concerned citizen. Sure enough, the wail of a siren eventually pierced the air. A Raleigh Police Department cruiser pulled into the lot, lights flashing but siren mercifully silenced as it parked. 2 officers stepped out, 1 male, 1 female. They wore the standard navy blue uniforms of the RPD, their badges gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Karen rushed forward to intercept them at the gate, arms flailing in a theatrical panic. Officers, she called. Thank you for coming so quickly. We have a trespasser in the pool area who refuses to leave. Maya took a deep, steadying breath. She walked calmly behind Karen, determined to take control of the narrative before it spiraled. As soon as she reached the gate, one officer, Officer Jenkins, according to his name tag, raised a hand to Maya, as if to ask her to keep her distance. The other officer, Officer Lane, turned to Maya with a neutral expression. Ma'am, do you live here? Officer Lane asked, her tone measured but probing. Maya nodded, forcing a pleasant politeness into her voice. Yes, officer. My name is Maya Carter. I own a house on Maplewood Drive, just a few blocks down. House number 214, to be exact. Officer Jenkins glanced over Maya's shoulder to the now half-packed tote bag on the lounge chair. Would you happen to have any identification? Maya nodded. My license is in my wallet, which is in my car. I didn't bring it to the pool. I do have a key fob that opened the gate. I also have digital proof of my address on my phone. She motioned to her phone, peeking out of the tote bag. Karen cut in. I've never seen her official ID, officers. She's repeatedly refused to show me proof of address. We have a lot of problems with outsiders sneaking into our pool. Maya felt a rush of indignation surge through her, but she swallowed it. Officer, may I retrieve my phone from my bag? Maya asked politely, aware that sudden movements could be misconstrued. Officer Lane nodded. Sure, go ahead. Maya moved slowly to her chair, rummaged in her tote, and pulled out her phone. With a few swipes, she opened an email from the Oakbridge Estates property management company, one that confirmed her home purchase. She extended the phone for the officer to see. This email is from when I closed on the property, which includes the address and the official documentation. You can see the date and my name. Maya scrolled to show her name, Maya Simone Carter, clearly stated multiple times. Officer Lane studied the email, nodding. This appears legitimate. Thank you for being cooperative. She handed the phone back. Karen's face twisted, a mixture of shock and frustration. But we have no idea if that's real, she interjected. Officer Jenkins cleared his throat. We can also run a quick check in our system, Miss Carter, if you don't mind giving us your full name and birth date. That will confirm property records, vehicle registration, or anything that ties you to this address. Maya sighed but nodded. That's fine. Maya Simone Carter, born April 2, 1983. She gave them the rest of the information they needed. Officer Jenkins spoke into his radio, stepping away to verify Maya's details. Meanwhile, Officer Lane asked Karen for clarification. Miss Dawson, you said you had direct evidence she wasn't a resident? Karen hesitated, color draining from her face. I've never seen her at HOA meetings. She doesn't follow the guidelines. She didn't have a pass on display. Officer Lane's lips parted in mild disbelief. Miss Dawson, is there a rule that owners must display their key fob once inside the pool area? Karen swallowed. We prefer they do, to prevent confusion. Officer Lane raised an eyebrow. Is that an official rule or a preference? Karen stammered. Yes, it's in the guidelines that you must carry your ID or pass. Officer Lane shot Maya a glance, then sighed. Miss Carter had the fob that works on the gate. She also showed an email verifying her ownership. That seems sufficient. At that moment, Officer Jenkins returned. He nodded to Maya, then addressed his partner. Confirmed. She's listed as the homeowner at the address she provided. All records check out. He turned to Maya with a courteous smile. Thank you for your patience, Miss Carter. Maya gave a tight smile in return, relief mixing with anger. Thank you, officer. Officer Lane took a breath, turning to Karen. Miss Dawson, this appears to be a misunderstanding. Miss Carter is the rightful homeowner here. There's no trespassing issue. Karen's eyes flickered with embarrassment and residual hostility. You can't blame me for being cautious, she said. I'm just following protocol. Maya could hardly contain her frustration. Before she could speak, the sound of another engine approached the parking lot, followed by the screech of wheels. A black SUV rolled up. Out stepped a man in a crisp charcoal suit, Maya's legislative aide, David Roberts. He had an urgent expression on his face. He'd apparently seen Maya's text, which she'd managed to send in haste before Karen had ended the 911 call. Maya had told David that someone was calling the cops on her at the pool. Concerned for her safety, David rushed over from the office to intervene if needed. He strode over quickly. Maya, are you all right? He asked, worry lacing his tone. Karen's brows knitted. And who are you? David turned a frosty glare toward Karen. I'm David Roberts, Miss Carter's aide in the state senate. She texted me that she was being harassed and the police were called. A hush fell over the small group. State senator? The officers exchanged stunned glances. Maya suspected they recognized her name now. Karen's complexion went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Officer Jenkins cleared his throat. State Senator Maya Carter? Ma'am, I apologize if this has been an inconvenience. Maya forced a polite but tight smile, conscious of how quickly the officer's demeanor changed once they realized they were dealing with a public official. She wasn't upset with them for verifying the facts, she was angry at the entire scenario. Thank you, officers, Maya said. I appreciate your professionalism. You were doing your job. Karen looked dumbfounded, her eyes darting from Maya to David, then back to Maya. You're a state senator? Maya turned her gaze on Karen, firm and resolute. I am. Elected last year, representing District 19. I've lived here for months now, Karen. You've known that. Karen's mouth trembled, but she managed to whisper, I didn't realize you were the Maya Carter. I don't watch much local news. Officer Lane spoke up gently. Ma'am, do you still insist Miss Carter is trespassing? Karen blinked rapidly, shaking her head as if in a fog. No, I must have made a mistake. The older couple from down the street had just arrived, having spotted the flashing lights. They stood near the fence, listening. They'd seen Maya speak at local events. Now they stared at Karen with disapproval. One of them muttered, loud enough for Maya to hear, oh dear, she's done it this time. Officer Lane and Officer Jenkins, concluding that no crime was committed, offered Maya a polite nod and walked back toward the cruiser. Maya thanked them again, bracing for the confrontation she knew was coming. As soon as the officers left, David turned to Maya. Everything okay now? Maya gave a small shrug, collecting her tote bag. I'll be fine, she said. Thank you for rushing over. He squeezed her shoulder, glancing suspiciously at Karen, then walked back to his SUV, presumably to return to work. Maya sighed, turning to address Karen. The older couple hovered at a polite distance, curious but not intervening. This is exactly the kind of nonsense I moved here to avoid, Maya said, her voice low and steely. You have harassed me from the day I moved in. Now you call the police because I'm swimming in my own pool? Karen's cheeks reddened. Maya, I was genuinely concerned about trespassers. You thought what? Maya interjected, anger seeping through. That I was too different to belong here? That I must be sneaking in? Karen opened her mouth, but no rebuttal came. The humiliating realization that she'd called the cops on a sitting state senator, her own neighbor, was sinking in. Words failed her. Maya shook her head. I'll be speaking to the rest of the HOA board about your conduct, she said. It's unacceptable, and I hope you realize how dangerous it is to call the police on someone who's done nothing wrong, especially a black woman. People can get killed that way. Karen gaped like a fish out of water, struggling to form a coherent response. She managed only a meek, I'm sorry. Maya gathered her things, every muscle tense. Before leaving the pool, she turned back to Karen. I'd advise you to really think about why you felt threatened by me, because I promise, this isn't over. With that, Maya walked out, leaving Karen standing alone by the water, shaken. News travels fast in a small suburb, even faster when a local reporter picks up on the story. One of Maya's supporters happened to be a freelance journalist. That evening, Maya received a call from her, sounding concerned and curious. The journalist had heard rumors of a pool incident where Maya was racially profiled. Maya hesitated but realized telling the truth might help raise awareness of the bigger issue. She recounted the basics, withholding Karen's last name, only referring to her as the HOA president. The journalist wrote a short piece about it on her blog and tweeted it out. By the next morning, Maya's phone was blowing up with notifications. Her social media accounts were flooded with messages of support, outrage, and questions. It didn't take long for local news outlets to catch wind, and soon Maya was fielding calls from the Raleigh News and Observer and even a few national platforms that specialized in stories about Karen calling the cops. Maya hadn't planned to stoke a media frenzy, but the public's appetite for these injustices was insatiable. Their outrage soared when they learned Maya was a duly elected state senator. Many saw the incident as a glaring example of racial bias. Hashtags like #PoolPatrolKaren and #HOA harassment cropped up, referencing Maya's story. Don't miss the explosive aftermath of this story. Stay with Adam Alpha to hear how it all unfolded. Meanwhile, Karen found herself confronted by a very different reality. The story spread among neighbors. Some, who had tolerated or even admired Karen's diligence, now realized the extent of her discrimination. The day after the police incident, Karen could hardly step outside without feeling the cold stares from other residents, whispered conversations on sidewalks, abrupt departures from block gatherings. Her neighbors wanted nothing to do with her. Even the HOA board members started to distance themselves, sending group emails about an emergency meeting to address the PR crisis. Karen avoided the local grocery store, terrified of the shame that now followed her like a shadow. And if she thought Maya's identity as a state senator was the worst of it, she was mistaken. The avalanche of negative press was about to bury her social standing entirely. The following week, the Oakbridge Estates HOA board convened an emergency meeting in the community clubhouse. Neighbors filled the room to capacity, some standing along the walls. Maya arrived with quiet dignity, accompanied by Lucy Harrington and the older couple who had witnessed the confrontation. A hush fell over the room as Maya walked in, a wave of silent respect for the gravity of what had occurred. Karen, who usually chaired these meetings, looked pale and jittery as she sat behind the folding table that served as the board's panel. Beside her were two other board members, Martha Green, an older woman with a stern expression, and Robert Lansing, a retired accountant who'd always seemed fair-minded to Maya. Both looked uneasy, as if they wished they weren't in Karen's immediate orbit. Martha tapped the microphone. "Thank you all for attending. This is an emergency session of the Oakbridge Estates HOA to discuss the recent incident at the community pool, which has garnered significant media attention." She glanced at Maya, then at Karen. "We ask everyone to be courteous and respectful as we hear from both sides." Karen cleared her throat, her voice trembling slightly. "I'd like to start by apologizing to Miss Carter. I honestly believed at the time that I was protecting our community. I realize now how wrong I was, and I deeply regret calling the police." A few people rolled their eyes, others crossed their arms skeptically. Maya said nothing yet, letting Karen's words hang in the air. Martha continued. "Thank you, Miss Dawson. Now, Senator Carter, would you like to make a statement?" Maya stood, her posture regal and calm, scanning the crowd. "Thank you, Martha. As many of you know, I purchased my home here a few months ago because I believed Oakbridge Estates was a welcoming community. I wanted a quiet place to retreat from my work, where I serve the state and all its citizens. However, I'd been subjected to repeated harassment by Miss Dawson. The police incident at the pool was merely the climax of a long series of invasive demands and targeted scrutiny." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Evidently, Maya wasn't the only resident to feel Karen's sting. Maya continued, "I'm grateful that the responding officers handled the situation professionally, but make no mistake, calling the police could have ended very differently for me. We live in a society where innocent black people have tragically been harmed or killed over baseless suspicion. This is not a trivial matter of over-enforcing rules. This is a matter of inherent bias and abuse of power, and it needs to stop." A wave of applause erupted, followed by Lucy's firm voice from her seat, "Hear, hear." Martha allowed the applause to settle before she spoke. "Thank you, Senator Carter. The board has been made aware of multiple complaints regarding Miss Dawson's conduct. This has prompted us to evaluate whether Karen has acted beyond the scope of her role as HOA president and whether her actions constitute a violation of our bylaws." Karen's face fell. She placed her palms flat on the table, beads of sweat visible on her brow. "I only wanted the best for this neighborhood," she said, her voice cracking. "I never meant any harm." Robert Lansing spoke up, his tone gentle but firm. "Karen, we appreciate your intentions, but we must face the reality that your approach has caused a serious rift in our community. We've received reports that you've singled out certain residents for warnings and citations while ignoring similar or worse infractions by others." Karen's eyes widened. "I was just trying to be thorough." Robert shook his head. "We have emails that show a pattern of repeated scrutiny toward Miss Carter, and it's not just her. Several residents of color have come forward with similar stories and overemphasis on rule enforcement for them while turning a blind eye to others. That's not thoroughness, Karen. That's discrimination." A heavy silence fell. Maya's heart clenched for a moment, realizing she wasn't alone in her experience. She felt the weight of others' stories pressing for recognition. Martha consulted a file in front of her, reading out some of the allegations: intrusive requests for proof of residency, disproportionate fines, repeated check-ins at odd hours. Karen was accused of a litany of harassing behaviors. The meeting stretched for over an hour, with multiple neighbors taking the microphone to share their experiences. Each testimony was another nail in the coffin for Karen's credibility as HOA president. Finally, the board took a brief recess. When they returned, Martha cleared her throat, eyes scanning the crowd. "We have decided, based on the severity of these incidents and the evidence provided, to hold a formal vote among the homeowners to determine whether Miss Dawson should be removed from her position. In the meantime, we are suspending Miss Dawson's power to levy fines or enforce HOA rules." A wave of relief and quiet cheer passed through the assembled neighbors. Karen slumped in her chair, tears brimming in her eyes. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Maya felt a combination of triumph and sorrow. She had no desire to see Karen's life fall apart, but accountability was necessary. The seeds of prejudice Karen had sown were now bearing their bitter fruit. The vote to remove Karen Dawson from the HOA presidency was scheduled for the following week, but her downfall unfolded well before the ballots were tallied. Online, the story of HOA Karen versus state senator blew up across social media. Memes circulated, showing Karen's scowling face beside Maya's poised, confident profile. Local news stations ran the story in prime time, featuring Maya's calm retelling of events contrasted with Karen's frantic 911 call, obtained through public records. The transcript left little doubt about the bias behind Karen's actions. Karen's workplace also got wind of the controversy. She worked as a mid-level manager for a real estate company in Raleigh. A day after the emergency HOA meeting, Karen was called into her boss's office. Concerned about the negative publicity, her employer put her on indefinite administrative leave pending an internal investigation. The real estate market thrived on reputation. Having an employee who'd become a national symbol for discriminatory behavior wasn't good for business. Friends, if she had any genuine ones left, avoided her calls. Her phone flooded with hate messages and condemnation. Protesters occasionally stood outside Oakbridge Estates with signs reading, "Stop Racial Profiling." People captured her comings and goings on camera, posting the footage online. The once powerful HOA president who had patrolled the neighborhood was now a pariah in her own home. Meanwhile, Maya navigated the attention with care. She gave a concise statement about the incident, emphasizing the broader issues of systemic racism and the importance of community unity. Her poise and eloquence only endeared her further to the public. Political analysts lauded Maya's measured response, saying it showcased her leadership and empathy under pressure. Donors to her campaign surged, citing her resilience in the face of discrimination as an inspiration. The day of the formal recall vote arrived. The meeting was a mere formality by now. Almost every homeowner who cast a ballot chose to remove Karen as president. In a final act of ignominy, Karen voted for herself to remain, but she was the lone dissenter against the avalanche of no confidence. The board thanked Maya for her cooperation throughout the process and asked her if she'd like to be part of a new committee focused on fostering inclusivity. Maya agreed, wanting to ensure no one else in Oakbridge Estates experienced what she had. As for Karen, the day after she was voted out, a neighbor told Maya that Karen was packing her belongings into a moving truck. When Maya passed by, she saw Karen herself, eyes red with tears, handing boxes to a mover. There was no satisfaction in Maya's heart, only a poignant empathy for someone whose own prejudice had undone her. She parked her car and, for a moment, considered walking over to Karen to say something. But what could she say? "I forgive you?" Maya didn't quite feel that yet. "I'm sorry your life fell apart?" That would be a lie. Karen had sown the seeds of her own downfall. In the end, Maya simply drove on. The vacant look on Karen's face was enough to tell her that the woman had learned a painful lesson. Sometimes, karma doesn't just knock, it breaks down the door. In the months that followed, Oakbridge Estates underwent a transformation. With Karen gone, the HOA board opened itself to diverse voices and fresh ideas. They revised the community guidelines to remove any vaguely worded rules that could be used to target individuals unfairly. They started a neighborhood mentorship program, pairing new residents with volunteers who'd help them acclimate without the fear of intrusive surveillance. Maya was a driving force behind these changes, though she balanced her involvement with her duties at the Capitol. She helped sponsor legislation aimed at regulating HOAs, preventing them from abusing power and imposing arbitrary fines. When the bill passed on the Senate floor, Maya received a standing ovation from her colleagues. The law, known as the Fair Community Act, didn't just benefit Oakbridge Estates, it helped neighborhoods across North Carolina. Residents from all walks of life reached out to Maya, sharing horror stories of HOA abuse and thanking her for championing their cause. The community pool became a more welcoming space, free from fear. On weekends, children laughed and splashed, families grilled hot dogs under the pavilion, and Maya could swim without constant scrutiny. New relationships formed. Lucy Harrington and Maya became close friends. They organized a diversity day that brought neighbors together to celebrate the different cultural backgrounds within the community. Food trucks, music, and laughter replaced the tense, suspicious atmosphere that once prevailed. Maya's story became a local legend, passed along whenever neighbors spotted a new resident looking wary. They'd say, "Have you heard what happened when the HOA tried to mess with Maya Carter? Let's just say, watch who you call a trespasser." It served as both a cautionary tale and an inspiring reminder that even the darkest corners of prejudice could be illuminated by truth and courage. One brisk evening in December, Maya arrived home from a holiday event to find an envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Senator Carter, I'm sure this is the last thing you expect or even want. I've moved out of Oakbridge Estates. I lost my job. My reputation is ruined. I deserved it, I know. I'm writing to say I am truly sorry, not just for calling the police on you, but for every suspicion, every rude comment, every time I assumed the worst because of my own biases. Nothing can undo the damage I caused, but I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Sincerely, Karen Dawson." Maya stared at the letter, emotions swirling. A part of her wanted to tear it up. Another part of her felt a wave of sympathy for a woman who let fear and prejudice guide her actions. In the end, Maya tucked the letter away in a drawer. Maybe someday she'd respond. For now, she was content to focus on the new sense of unity blossoming in her neighborhood and on the legislative duties that awaited her, fueled by renewed purpose. She'd faced an ugly confrontation, but she emerged stronger, carrying not only her own dignity but also a torch for others who might face similar discrimination. The wheels of change had begun to turn in Oakbridge Estates and beyond. And if karma was indeed real, then Maya Carter and her neighbors had seen it in action, swift, unrelenting, and surprisingly transformative. Thank you for joining this dramatic journey of bias, confrontation, and the power of accountability on Adam Alpha. When HOA Karen called the cops on a black woman at her own pool, little did she know she was dealing with a state senator determined to expose the roots of prejudice. We witnessed how one moment of unjust suspicion unraveled a woman's authority and sparked profound reform in an entire community. If you found this story eye-opening, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Adam Alpha. Every interaction helps us illuminate more stories that challenge assumptions and champion true justice for all.